What is up, Ivy Leaguers? We have a banger of an episode for you today. Make sure you stay tuned till the end. We are discussing all of the college football drama that is going on, of course, with the college football playoffs looming. We have a game tonight, 3 games tomorrow. Huge, huge games. Gonna be some awesome ones. It's the New Year's Six Bowls. Last video of 2025. Can't wait for 2026. It's going to be a good year, I hope. Big year for Ivy League Sports Podcast. We're going to have some huge stuff coming in 2026. Make sure you stay tuned during 2026. Tell your friends about us. Make sure you leave a comment. We're going to have comment prompts. Let me know what you want to hear. But let's talk sports. All right, tonight we have Ohio State versus Miami, a major matchup here in where is it? Is it it's not in New Orleans. It's the Cotton Bowl. It's the Cotton Bowl. So let's get it. Obviously, this is a matchup. Look, this video is not going to be super long and drawn out. We're going to get right to the point, as we always do here at Ivy League Sports Podcast. All right, Ohio State versus Miami. Fight night tonight in the Cotton Bowl. Look, we get it. The big headline is Ohio State's offense versus Miami's defense. That is the headline. That is what everyone's going to be looking at tonight. Can Miami's defense control Ohio State's offense, much like Miami did against Texas A&M? If they can do that, this is a completely different matchup than kind of what my first thought was. Because when you first look at this matchup, you're like, Ohio State's going to murder Miami. I don't think so. I think Miami could very much stay in this game if their defense can play like they did against Texas A&M. Because let's be honest, look, we know Ohio State historically has this terrifying defense that will wreck you. And they have a good defense this year. I think they probably have a top 5 defense this year. But that's not how Miami wins games. Miami does not win games with their offense. They win games with their defense. So it'll be interesting to see if Ohio State forces turnovers. Yes, that'll probably impact the game. But let's be honest, it's going to be a field position battle here. Much like it was against Texas A&M for Miami. If Miami can control field position, then this game might flip on its head. I mean, the turnover battle will obviously be the key that we are watching. This will be the key that I'm watching. It should be the key that you're watching. I hope it is. Because, look, if Miami somehow forces a turnover here and there, this game flips on its head and Miami might win this thing. Miami could very much. People are really sleeping on Miami, and I don't understand why. They went into Texas A&M, which is a tough, tough place to play, and they showed Texas A&M that we're going to play physical, and they played physical. And look, if they force some turnovers against Ohio State, I don't think Ohio State will know what hit them, and they could easily be knocked out of the playoffs tonight. It is a crazy thing to think about. We have to watch this quarterback matchup because you got Julian Sain at Ohio State. He is a dog, okay? He's a great quarterback. But then again, we got a familiar name over there at Miami, Mr. Carson Beck. I'm kidding. Carson Beck, I kind of have some beef with Carson Beck. Look, he played at Georgia, and he was not good at Georgia. Let's be quite frank. He was a good enough quarterback to get Georgia to win some games, but he wasn't a stellar quarterback like people think he is. I mean, against Alabama last year, he played horrible, and really he always seemed to have that just dazed and confused look. He kind of looked like Matthew McConaughey's character in Dazed and Confused, quite frankly. And I mean, this is the guy that's now leading Miami to a possible playoff win against Ohio State? Are you kidding me? But yeah, he is. He is. And so it'll be an interesting quarterback matchup. If Carson Beck can show some magic, Miami might pull off this upset. I am picking Ohio State because it's Ohio State and because I think Ohio State's defense will end up forcing some turnovers. But if Miami wins the turnover battle, watch out. I think Miami might pull off that upset. But look, we got more games to talk about. We got tomorrow, the first game of the new year, Game number 2 here, Texas Tech versus Oregon. And look, we've talked a lot about Texas Tech versus Oregon here on this podcast because it is a stellar matchup. I said it in the last video. This is the most explosive matchup of all of the second round CFB games. We look at this game and we see explosive offenses, but what will actually win this game will be the defenses. Because as I said in the previous video, fast does not always equal smart. All right? If you play fast, you can sometimes play sloppy. And that's not a good way to play. You don't want to play sloppy. If you play sloppy, you lose. It's a fact. Okay? It'll be pace versus possession. I think whichever team can control the possession in this game will win this ball game. Texas Tech does an outstanding job of controlling possession and doing what they want with the football, whether it's speeding it up, slowing it down, or doing whatever they want with it. They know how to control possession and pace, okay? But Oregon does a really good job controlling or having their pace when their pace is being played, but we don't necessarily see them do a good job controlling the pace. They need to control the pace tomorrow against Texas Tech. And let's be honest, I think it'll be a shootout. We all know. I mean, it's going to be a Lone Star shootout, even though where is this game? It's the Orange Bowl in Miami. Never mind. It's not going to be a Lone Star shootout, but Texas Tech's going to be wanting it to be a Lone Star shootout because that's how Texas Tech wins ball games, okay? That is how they have. And excuse me. They know how to control the pace and they know how to run up the score, and they very much could do it against Oregon. This has the potential to be a classic. A classic, instant classic game. What was it on the old college football video games where it'd be like you've completed an instant classic? This has the potential to be an instant classic. Okay? But let's move on. My pick for this one, I'm picking Texas Tech purely because I think Texas Tech controls possession. Also, I think Texas Tech has a super underrated defense. I think they're really going to get Dante Moore and Oregon off balance. And I think Texas Tech's defense just comes through and just, shreds Oregon's offensive line. Texas Tech wins, moves on to the semifinals. Game number 3. Now we have a SEC rematch. Georgia, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, obviously, no Lane Kiffin. It will be their second game without him. Look, I am actually really high on this Ole Miss team. Believe it or not. I think Ole Miss has some potential here. Ole Miss has been brewing something all year. And then obviously when Lane Kiffin started causing his drama, everyone kind of forgot about what they built. They have a very, very good football team there. They have a wonderful quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. I kind of think that this game has built up into a game that Georgia might lose. Now, look, I don't think Ole Miss is going to win the game. I think it'll be Georgia loses the game. But there's just something about it. And to all my Memphis folks, shout out Memphis folks. I used to live in Memphis, big Ole Miss city. I think if Ole Miss wins this game, we look at them really potentially running the table at this thing and maybe getting a shot at them, that national championship trophy. But again, I think this is Georgia's game to lose. I think if Georgia comes out sleepwalking, then I think that we see Ole Miss maybe pull off an upset. But here's the thing. I think Ole Miss will stick with it for the first half. I think Ole Miss maybe even leads at the end of the first half. But then Kirby Smart has 30 minutes or more at halftime to devise a new game plan. Kirby Smart is so good at game planning, and I really think that if his game plan doesn't work at the start, he is such a good coach in that he can completely adapt. And it's, he was mentored by Coach Saban. We know Coach Saban here is as the GOAT. And Kirby has modeled his team after a Nick Saban-style team, and it's just his ability to adapt is incredible. It's why I really As much as Kirby Smart annoys me at Georgia, I think he truly is a great coach, and it's hard to hate on him because of how good of a coach he is. Like, he is just a good coach. No doubt about it. So, yes, I think Ole Miss has a shot at this thing, but they will have a lead at the end of the first half, if not more than just a one-score lead, because we all know Kirby's going to go into halftime and he's going to throw something at you you've never seen in that second half. I think if Ole Miss forces 2 turnovers, then maybe Ole Miss has to force at least 2 turnovers to win this football game, in my opinion. Will they do that? We will see, but I'm picking Georgia. So far, my games, I'm picking Ohio State, Texas Tech, and Georgia. All the favorites. But in game number 4, am I picking the favorite? And you're going to see why I am not picking Indiana to beat Alabama. And it is not because I am an Alabama fan. As we all know, if you've watched this podcast before, it is because I think this game, the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, has potential to be an instant classic, much like that Texas Tech Oregon game. Listen, the weather forecast for Pasadena tomorrow is 100% rain. There are chances of flooding. They might have to move the game. Who does this help? And, when I first saw the forecast, I said, oh, this is not good. Alabama's in trouble. This is not good for Alabama. Alabama seems to thrive on chaos. They go down 17-0 to Oklahoma, and then they win. They go on a 27-0 run and end up winning that football game. They thrive on chaos. And look, it's a Cinderella story for Indiana. Undefeated season. Yay, yay. We got a Heisman winning quarterback. Like, he's a good guy. Here's the truth about Fernando Mendoza, okay? You want to hear it? This is a big stat. I want you to listen. This is the truth about Fernando Mendoza. 27 of his 33 touchdowns came against Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin, and Purdue. Do you hear a ranked team in that list? Those are 27 of his 33 touchdowns. The other 6 touchdowns were against Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. In those, 5 games? Yes, in those 5 games where he threw 6 touchdowns against the harder opponents, he combined for 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So he's got 27 touchdowns against the cupcake opponents, which you could argue that Penn State and Maryland are inferior opponents as well. He has 6 touchdowns against actual tough opponents and 5 interceptions in those games. I'll tell you what, with that stat, I would pick Alabama in a heartbeat. And that is why I am picking Alabama, because look, yes, it is a Cinderella story for Indiana. Yes, I get it. Fernando Mendoza, it probably has the best eye test in college football. But that stat that I just told you right there, that should tell you something. That should tell you that Indiana hasn't seen a team like Alabama. Okay? They've seen teams with good defenses and maybe mediocre offenses, other than Ohio State, outside of Ohio State, and even Oregon. I put Oregon on the fringe because Oregon's defense has shown at times this season to be really lacking some of the key prospects of a superstar team. Okay? They've seen teams with really good offenses and mediocre defenses, and they've seen teams with mediocre offenses and really good defenses, or vice versa, okay? Other than Ohio State. Outside of Ohio State is obviously their best win, and they're going to be riding that high coming into this Rose Bowl. But I'm just going to tell you, Alabama has played a brutal schedule. Okay? Brutal. And I get it. They lost to Florida State in the first game of the season. Then they won 7 straight. Okay? And then something clicked in their minds, where their offense stopped working. They lost to Oklahoma by 2 points, and they played the worst game they've played all season against Oklahoma, I would say. And then they go to Auburn, and they get a superstar win. They clinch an SEC championship berth. Everyone's like, oh, this team's back. And then they get dog-walked in the SEC championship by Georgia. And then in the first quarter of the Oklahoma game, it looks like the same thing is happening. But then that click that I talked about that happened against Oklahoma the first time, it clicked back. And they remembered how to play football, believe it or not. All because of one touchdown from Lodzier Brooks. Lottie Dottie Brooks sparked Alabama's comeback win against Oklahoma, and I think he sparked their playoff run. I think if Alabama wins this football game, Alabama wins the national championship. I'll let that sink into you for a minute. I don't think a team outside of Georgia and Indiana can beat Alabama that's in the playoffs right now. I think Indiana has to play the best they've played all season against this Alabama football team. And it all depends on which Alabama football team shows up. Because if the team that shows up for the last 3 quarters of that Oklahoma game, Alabama could win this game by 3 scores in a heartbeat. But if the team that showed up against Georgia in the SEC championship shows up, Indiana runs away with this thing and blows them out. It all depends on which team shows up. And that's the thing about the 12-team playoff that I preach. It's about consistency. Which team is the most consistent? And to me, I'm not convinced Indiana is the most consistent team. I'm not convinced Alabama is a consistent team because we all know that they are arguably the least consistent team in this playoffs. When they are hot, they are the best team in the playoffs, in my opinion. But when they're not hot, no. They are pitiful when they're not hot. It's about being consistent, and here's what I think. I think the right team shows up for Alabama tomorrow. I think it's going to be pouring rain. I think Indiana has trouble controlling the ball with turnovers on offense. I think Indiana possibly turns the ball over 3 times, if not more, partially because of the rain. Also because I don't think they've seen a defense as good as Alabama's. Because Alabama's defense is right up there with Ohio State's. And I'll give you a detailed reason on that why after this Indiana football game. And I think Alabama beats Indiana and goes on to win the national championship. That is what I think is going to happen. All because of a win here in Pasadena. Maybe I'm wrong. But that stat that I told you, and I'm going to tell you it again. All right? Because I'm going to clip it and post it on Instagram Shorts probably. Or Instagram Reels, pardon me. Okay? This is the truth behind Fernando Mendoza. This is why I think he's maybe not as good as everyone says he is. 27 of his 33 touchdowns came against Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin, and Purdue. Inferior opponents. Cupcakes, as I would call them. The other 6 of his touchdowns were against Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. Those are more advanced opponents, more to Indiana's skill level. Maybe not exactly to their skill level, but they are quality opponents. All right? 6 of his 33 touchdowns were in the quality opponent games. In those games against quality opponents, he combined for 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Not good. I think this game is set up for the bettors, for Las Vegas. It's set up for everyone to be betting on Indiana. I think Alabama wins this football game outright because I think he hasn't seen a defense. Fernando Mendoza hasn't seen a defense quite as good as Alabama's. He hasn't seen an SEC team that flies to the football like Alabama does. This could get scary for Indiana because of that stat. Look, I'm picking Alabama. I think the final score will be Alabama 27, Indiana 20. I think it's a slob fest on offense. And I think Alabama advances into the semifinals and ultimately wins the national championship there. All right, so my picks for all 4 games: Ohio State versus Miami, I picked Ohio State. Texas Tech versus Oregon, picked Texas Tech. Georgia Ole Miss, we picked Georgia. And in the Rose Bowl, we picked Alabama over Indiana. How about that? All right, comment who you think will win each game and why so that I can give you a response in the comment section. And then if I get 50% of the picks right, I'm doing a shorts reaction series after all the games. Who knows? Maybe we'll even, live stream my reaction to one of the semifinal games. Maybe. All right, that is it for today. Thank you for listening to me. This is Ivy Taylor from the Ivy Taylor Show, the Ivy League Sports Podcast, signing off. Until next time, Ivy Taylor signing off. Good night.